afternoon. Welcome to Lunch with Books. If you have a cell phone and it makes a noise, please make sure that it doesn't. Although I don't think you'll hear it. You might want to put it on vibrate. If you're not on our email list, the box is over there. Next Tuesday, March 8th, we'll present a program that was originally scheduled for January, but weather actually it was illness that got in the way. About the McClure House Hotel, the McClure Hotel, and we'll be hearing from some of the famous visitors over the years, like General Rosecrans, Buffalo Bill Cody, Joe McCarthy, Teddy Roosevelt, Harry Truman, JFK, and Gene Finstein will be the primary presenter. That'll be next week at noon. This Thursday, in this room, Bill Lepp, who is the 5-time winner of the West Virginia Liars competition. He is the host of History Channel's Man vs. History, and he's regarded as one of the best storytellers in the country. He'll be here to tell you stories about Appalachian fairy tales at 7 p.m. Okay, pretend you're in the islands, and it's nice and warm. Well, it is warmer today than it has been. And we're going to present something different today. Steel Pan Orchestra, the steel band from West Liberty University. Here they are.
How's that? Is it working? Yes, it's working. Great. Mass plus amplification. Strange, but let's do it anyway. Welcome. Thank you for coming. We are the West Liberty University Steel Band. I'm Dr. Mitch Greco, and I'm the director of the group. How many of you have seen us before? Raise your hand. I see, we'll call it a spattering. Excellent, a little spattering. And for you new people, thank you for coming out and watching us today. Last year, I brought the African Drum and Dance Ensemble to this event, Lunch with Books. Thank you, Sean Duffy and Ohio County Public Library and Lunch with Books program for having us back. That's awesome of you, doing something different. So who saw us on the African Drum and Dance Ensemble last year? Another medium-sized spattering. Excellent. Okay, I'll make some references to those for you that maybe saw us last year. But people that didn't see us last year, don't worry, it won't leave you behind. It will also make sense to you. That first song, who recognized it? You didn't know there was going to... Okay, that's more than a spattering. Okay, you recognize the Beatles, Hey Jude. One thing I love about this ensemble, the Steel Pan Orchestra, is that it can play a lot of different tunes. It's because Calypso and Soca are just great genres, styles of music. Those are the two main styles from Trinidad and Tobago. It's a two-island set in the Caribbean. It's actually only like a few miles, I'm going to say a few miles away from South America, from Venezuela. So it's in the southern tip of the Caribbean islands. How many have played the steel pans before, these instruments? Yeah, that's not a spattering. That's okay. Before the pandemic, I was hoping to start a community steel band. Now that we're getting out of it, I'm starting that work again. So stay tuned for that. We hope to have a community steel band off the hill. You all know, yes, thank you. Yes, excellent. Let's show you some of the pans. Okay, so you may notice that the range is quite large in this ensemble. We're all playing essentially the same instruments, but they're actually constructed in completely different ways. In the front here, Shane is going to show us the lead pan. In Trinidad and Tobago, they'll call this the lead pan. Come on over, Shane. Okay, I'll give him a minute to do that. Please watch your step. In Trinidad and Tobago, they will call this the lead pan. This is the one that's actually leading the ensemble, and it's leading it primarily through playing the melody. You can take it off. Why don't you go ahead and show our lovely audience? And we have an audience at home as well, so why don't you show them as well? And that's through this camera right here. Hi, people at home. I told my mother that we're playing, so she might be watching. I might be getting a lot of text messages now that say that I still talk too much. They will call this either the lead or the tenor. They call it the tenor because it is in the range, and they thought it was in the range of an operatic tenor that they would hear in operas. Like Pavarotti, right? My wife? Pavarotti is an operatic tenor, right? Yes. So they would get recordings of Pavarotti, and this is the range that Pavarotti sings in, an operatic tenor. So that instrument is called a lead pan or a tenor pan. It's a little bit over 2 octaves long in range. And all the notes are pretty small. They're pretty small and close together. So our accuracy on the lead players is really important. If we miss where we're trying to hit just by like an inch, we'll hit a different note. Or we won't get any sound out of the pan at all. Okay, so that's why typically there's quite a few of us leads. Going down from there, we have the double tenor over to the left. Who did I say was going to show the double tenor? Your mom's here, so you might be a little bit nervous right now. Why don't we have Alexia Schmader? You're going to take one pan off, and your friend over there, Miss Healy Deagle, can also help you. And we'll show them one pan. These are called double tenors. They're still in the same range, so they typically call this a tenor, because it's in the tenor range of an operatic tenor. And double because, well, there's two of them. There's two of them, so now they have to play two pans. It becomes more of a sticking challenge, that's for sure. All of our pans were made by Cliff Alexis, and he was a really important steel pan player, steel pan arranger, and steel pan maker. He lived just outside of Chicago. Yeah, yes, I think they want to see it. Yes, I'm judging their faces. They want to see that drum. Great, and we'll move down, and now we're beginning to have a different range here in the double seconds. Double because they are playing two pans as well. Seconds because they're in the second line. Traditionally, a lot of this music started, they would actually play in like a parade situation, especially at Carnival, which is coming up. So they would actually play a lot of pans of different ranges hanging over their neck. The seconds were the second line. You might be familiar with that in New Orleans jazz funerals as well, where they have the second line. Great, and that's a double second. The double second drum. That happens to be one of my drums. Is that correct, Jason? Yep. That's one of my drums. That one's chrome. That one has a chrome finish, which is a little bit nicer sound, a little bit more durable, and a little nicer finish. Most people think. The double seconds would play comping patterns. They typically don't play the melody. They're playing the harmony underneath it, giving it some of that distinctive rhythm in calypso and soca music. That's what the double seconds play. We see a lot of virtuoso players play the double seconds because you can play the melody and you can accompany yourself at the same time. So if you're going to be a soloist, first of all, that's hard, but it's possible, especially if you're a double second player. It's got that nice range where you can play the melodies in the upper register, and then in the lower register, you can actually accompany yourselves. Andy Norell is probably one of the first ones to do that, to bring these instruments outside of the big steel pan orchestra. As we move down, we have the triple cello. Thank you for bringing the triple cello down. Thank you. Nick is a freshman. He's a music major, double music tech and music performance major in percussion. Nick, did you ever play steel pan before? No. How many people have played steel pan before you joined this ensemble? Miss Haley. So when I start that community band, the excuse that you've never played before is not a valid one. I will teach you. I am what they call a teacher. I didn't say whether it was good or bad, but I will teach you. Okay, Nick over here is showing you the triple cello. It's called a triple because there are three of them. So Nick is going to negotiate around three different steel pans, three different instruments while he's playing. It's called the cello because the Trinidadians thought that this was in the range of the cello, which they were familiar with the Western classical orchestra. Some will also call this instrument a triple guitar. It's called a guitar because what they play is typically a rhythmic comping pattern, which is very similar to what a guitar might do. Jun, 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 which they were familiar with really the birth of Calypso. Calypso, as a music genre, did not start on the steel pans, actually. It started with guitar, some percussion, and then a singer that was almost like kind of rapping and singing as well, improvising while they were singing, and kind of this precursor to rapping. It almost sounds like talking, but they were singing as well. The original Calypsonians would kind of use metaphors to make it seem like they were talking about like fun things and love and stuff like that, but really they were talking about their social status and really troubles in the community that they had in the early 1900s in Trinidad. Really fascinating stuff, and maybe I'll come back next year and talk to you about the origins of Calypso and how it would end up being adapted to the steel pan orchestra. This is the triple cello or the triple guitar. They would call those either of those two things. We didn't bring our big basses down, but we could also have basses, which is the entirety of a 55-gallon oil drum. We didn't bring those because it's hard to get downstairs. So, but if you go to see us perform on ground level, then you will probably see us play the sixth bass. Instead, we have a bass guitar. Sam, can you raise your hand? He's playing the bass guitar right there. Nice job, Sam. You're doing great. The most important part of the steel pan orchestra, however, is the engine room. They should be playing right now. The engine room. My first teacher would say, okay, it's the most important section, but not necessarily the smartest. Okay, I didn't say it. I'm just the messenger. Okay, but yes, it is the most important part. And this is traditionally a drum set and a variety of auxiliary percussion. Can we hear the iron? The iron is actually a brake drum that comes from a car. Can we hear that?
Yes.
We brought it. Okay, let me hear it. Good. This is an important part of the engine room. The steel pan orchestra is considered to be a car, but without the engine, it might look nice, it might look the part, but it's not going anywhere. So the iron or the brake drum that really comes from a car and the drum set is what moves this band. So that's actually the most important part. I'm sure you can hear it in this loud booming space. You can hear our engine. Okay, and we are ready. Yes, perfect. We are ready to play our second selection. Our second selection is what a lot of people in the West, and especially the United States, came into contact with Calypso music. You may have heard this from Harry Belafonte's version or a really classic scene in the movie Beetlejuice. We hope you enjoy Jump in the Line. Oh, and this one, the way we're going to play it, we're going to start playing it as a Calypso, and then we're going to end up playing it as a soca. So in the middle of it, we're going to transition. And I'll talk to you about that after we play it. But you know, we're going to start this as a Calypso, and then we're going to end it as a soca, the two main music genres or styles in the country where these instruments come from, Trinidad and Tobago. Thank you. Okay. Okay, who recognized that one? Okay, oh, only a few of you. Okay, all right, good. You have some movies to watch. It's called Beetlejuice. It's starring Michael Keaton. Okay, this is not a commercial for that movie, but watch that movie. Good. So one thing I really like about this music, for those of you that came last year to the African Drum and Dance, know that I studied with a master Ghanaian drummer. Started when I was 18, and I lived basically within 2 blocks of that master drummer from West Africa for 5 years, and went over to Africa 3 times. That all happened before I started playing steel pan. So I developed a love for African music before I ever even played the steel pan. So that kind of influences one way that I think of this music. And this music really is built from the African Afro-Trinidadians, or the African diaspora in the country of Trinidad and Tobago. It is using those African rhythms and African styles of layering and applying it to a melodic instrument, applying European harmony, really synthesizing the community in Trinidad and Tobago that was made up of Africans, Europeans, and indigenous people from there. So it's really a great music culture that we can kind of identify, oh, this element is more of an Africanism. This is more of an African musical culture part, and this part maybe is a little bit more European. So let's bring, we have a cowbell here, right? Can I have a cowbell? Can we bring the cowbell out here? I'm going to show them about this cowbell. When I came last year, I brought an instrument called a gakokwe. That's what's called a double bell, or in Twi, they call it a gakokwe. Okay? Yes, can you hold it for a second? Thank you. This is my wife. Please give her a hand. She's also more than my wife. I just said that. Her name is Dr. Karen Greco. She is a vocalist and an opera singer and classical singer, and is quite lovely. And she joins me on a lot of these things and helps me. So, thank you. And she's going to help hold the cowbell. Last year, I brought you the gakokwe. It's a double bell. There are 2 different size bells on that instrument, one small and one large. Okay? And I told you that all their rhythms are thought melodically. Okay? While we think, in the West especially, we think of African rhythms as just rhythms, okay, something that percussionists can play like on a practice pad, we demonstrated for you that none of their drums in West Africa would ever be tuned to the same pitch. They have different pitches, and when they fill in the space of one another, they create what's called a melodic composite. Okay, there's a melodic part of that music. The individual musicians may think of their individual part rhythmically. Okay, so it's perceived or conceived rhythmically. So they're thinking of their part rhythmically, but when all the layers join and fill in each other's spaces, it's perceived melodically. This happens just on this one instrument right here. This instrument that we often think is like really kind of simple, maybe kind of a novel instrument, but when you hear them play it, it's quite amazing, and there's a melodic component to it. I'm going to be playing a higher pitch on the body of this instrument, and I'm going to be playing a lower pitch on the mouth, or the enu in Spanish, of the instrument. And that creates a lower sound. I'm going to be playing the most simplest rhythm first, but even with that, I want you to try to bend your ears to think of this melodically. 2 tones, high and low. Low and high. What's called the Mambo Bell, if you ever heard of Mambo music from nearby Caribbean culture. Oh, I didn't have this. Sorry if you didn't hear me at home. Hope you enjoyed my cowbell play. So all of our rhythms in this particular ensemble is really derived from the African concept, but it's applied to pitches that we are familiar with, and we could play with other instruments from the classical scheme, like a trumpet, like a saxophone, and many times we often do. So it's using that European pitch concept of scales and dividing an octave into 12 even parts that are 100 cents apart. I don't know how many of you are musicians, but you might have had a band director tell you that you're 6 cents sharp. Okay, it's dividing an octave into 12 even parts. And we have that on all of our instruments here. So it's really applying African rhythms and African layering to the European pitch content. That is what the steel pan is actually all about. It's a great synthesis. It's a synthesis of 2, actually 3 cultures, because the indigenous does have some influence into this music, but it's the synthesis of 2 or more cultures that happens from a long time, where these cultures are living in the same space, assimilating to one another and creating a new society where they can, at least to some extent, get along. And we see that in the music of the steel pan orchestra. That's just one reason why I really love this particular musical style of steel pan orchestra. It's taking everything that I do in the classical realm. It's taking those other things that I was doing with my African Ghanaian teacher and blending them. And I was like, yes, I love this. Okay, it's like taking timpani and marimba and combining it with all those African drums. And for me anyway, it results in the steel pan orchestra. The next piece that we have is from a former student of mine, Joshua Garrett. He's the son of Pat Garrett, who was a longtime band director at Wheeling Park. And he is now, this past year, at Weir High School, the band director up there. And he just got a couple pans, so he's very slowly starting a steel pan band in Weirton, West Virginia. This arrangement is something that he did of a Shaka Khan tune, and we hope you enjoy Ain't Nobody. Okay, great. The last thing I wanted to talk to you a little bit. I've been watching your program, this Lunch with Books program, and I've loved it. It's awesome. I tune in between classes. So, and I've been checking out. It seems like a lot of people are really interested in local history, and I think that's great. That's awesome. So I don't know if you know this, but you actually live in what's called, at least outside of this area, as a steel band hub. You live in the middle of a steel band hub. That hub goes from Chicago really to Morgantown, West Virginia. In the early days, 70s, two people came from Trinidad and Tobago, Cliff Alexis and Ellie Minette. Cliff Alexis ended up at Northern Illinois University, where he started the band there. Huge band. Great band. It continues to be a great band led by Liam T. Awesome band. Another very important person, Ellie Minette, went to Morgantown. Eventually, he went to New York City. He worked with the Navy SEAL Band, and then eventually he ended up being invited by Phil Fahimi, who was the percussion professor, to become the dean. He invited him, Ellie Minette, to Morgantown to teach how to basically build pans. That was the big one. Phil Fahimi wanted, it's weird calling him Phil Fahimi, I call him Chief. Okay, Chief really wanted Ellie Minette to teach students there how to build pans. He wanted to teach them how to arrange as well. He wanted Ellie Minette to lead the band, but really he wanted to teach them how to build the pans, because Ellie Minette was really, really passionate about that, making sure that these instruments don't die away via a lack of people to actually build the instruments. So he wanted to teach American students how to build the instruments. And he did that in Morgantown when he was affiliated with WVU. And even after he retired, he still had his pan shop in Morgantown, where they continue to make excellent instruments. From that area, from Chicago all the way to Morgantown, there's two really important people in there as well. So if you draw that line, you'll find Akron, Ohio. It's not that far from here, folks. That is a really important space as well, because two people, Shelley Irvine and Ron Kearns, ended up forming Panyard. This was really the first pan makers that were primarily American builders. They learned the craft, and they really exploded this music, exploded this band here to be really, really popular in the United States in terms of professional bands, semi-professional bands, community bands, college bands, high school bands, and even all the way down to elementary school bands, especially with jumping bands. They're kind of like smaller bands that even like 5 and 6-year-olds can play. We really have a lot to thank for Shelley and Ron for making the steel pan orchestra a significant music culture in the United States. Shelley now lives in Steubenville, and he has a huge shop, and he's perfecting it right now. We used the pandemic to really make his new shop, and I hear that it's awesome, and I'll be taking the band to that soon. And he continues to be our tuner and the maker of these pans. Now, I said these pans were made by Cliff Alexis. Yes, in about 1983, West Liberty was one of the first bands, either the third or the fourth band in the United States. West Liberty University, the third or the fourth band in the United States. Cliff Alexis made these instruments mostly in 1982 and 1983. However, when I got the job, when I came to West Liberty in 2016, the pans were in storage. The percussion professor, a couple before me, didn't play steel band. So it was like, get rid of those instruments. They're just in the way. We're not going to have a steel band. If that wasn't sad enough, the custodians put the pans away. They didn't know that they were instruments. You might notice that some of these instruments kind of look like trash bins or trash cans. So they put stuff in there and they kind of destroyed a lot. So the pans were in bad shape. But Shelley came to our rescue and actually made kind of this band that you see today. He took this pan that was, hey, this pan is in decent shape. This one is in decent shape. Let's make somehow a set of double seconds out of these two random instruments. And now I don't know how he did it, but he did it. And I think that the drums actually sound really, really good. But sometimes I refer, here. Did I hear a here? Here. But I sometimes refer to this current band and the current situation it's in as a Frankenstein band. Because it used to be much bigger, but Shelley Irvine kind of salvaged the pans and made a working band out of it. So we have a lot to thank for him, and he's continuing to do his thing and bring it to the next level in Steubenville, Ohio. And then our band was started by Mark Williams. I don't know if you're familiar with Mark Williams. He continues to teach, so he's still active, and he brought this band He was the percussion professor, and he found a lot of value in bringing a steel band for music students, for general music education, and for percussion students to learn basically how to hit things musically. That's basically what we do. So a lot to thank for Mark Williams as well. Again, one of the first bands in this country is from West Liberty. And then we know that Ellie Minette came to WVU just a few years later in 1987, 1988, and they continue to have a huge band at WVU as well. So from Morgantown to Chicago is this steel band hub for America, for the United States. This is like the steel band hub, and we're kind of right in the middle of it, folks. So we have a lot to be proud of, for sure. The other big steel band hub, I would say, in the entire world, obviously outside of Trinidad and Tobago, and there's a lot of them, so I hope they are not watching or take offense to this, but it's actually Japan. So the two steel band hubs outside of Trinidad and Tobago is Japan and Morgantown to Chicago, which basically we're right in the middle. So yay, go us. So enjoy this little piece of history as well. I hope you enjoy the music. And obviously, or maybe I shouldn't say obviously, but I hope you feel inspired to move and rock out, do your thing, because in Trinidad and Tobago, there would actually almost like never be a concert like this where the audience is just sitting. So feel free, be spatially aware if there's people around you, don't knock into them, I would say, but otherwise feel free to move and enjoy our last selection, which is Rock the Boat, which is originally a Hughes Corporation disco tune. So hope you enjoy that. And it's a longer tune, but we should have at least a few minutes for a Q&A afterwards. Okay, so this is our last selection called Rock the Boat. Do we have an encore? We didn't set up an encore, but
I said,
and that's all we need. We actually didn't even need that. What do we have? Do we have anything from last semester? Okay, Shane's gonna let me know. And in the meantime, let's do a Q&A. Okay, talk amongst yourselves. Okay, any questions from anyone? Yes, Mr. Arlo.
what's the average cost of steel drum?
A steel drum? Okay, so there's all qualities of steel drums. Just like a violin, you can probably get one at Walmart, and then there's the Stradivarius. Okay, so for most of these types of drums that are appropriate for like band playing, not solo playing, you could basically budget for about $800 for every single set. About $800 for every single set. These drums are very different because back in the 80s, the oil drum barrels that they used were actually thicker. So this set sounds really unique to me and many others as well. I remember a lot of people came up to me and said, "I'm so glad the West Liberty Steel Band is back, not only because I love West Liberty or I love this band, but actually because it sounds so unique because the metal is actually quite thick." Yes?
Do you take requests?
I think we have 20 tunes in our book. If it happens to be one of the remaining 16 that we have. Yes.
You referenced and you played a song from Beetlejuice.
Yes.
And my daughter and I are going to New York in April. We're going to see Beetlejuice in Brooklyn. And we saw a preview, and of course we did the movie version for Halloween. We had the Calypso going, we had the whole thing. Do you know the song, the one they play, Deo, the banana boat song?
Oh, okay. So we used to. A couple of the people in this band did play this one. And I'm sure there's an advanced version of Deo, and I will work on that so we can bring it back because I didn't know people actually wanted to hear it. But that's often the tune that I first use to introduce people to playing steel band is Deo. So the version that I have and that we do or have done a long time ago is actually too simple. These kids are actually playing like grade level 4 plus, and we'll be playing probably not the hardest tunes that are available for the band, but the next hardest, they will be playing those in the fall, which is Panorama. It's a big competition that happens in Trinidad and Tobago during the Carnival season, during Lent. So they will be getting not the hardest tunes, but the next hardest tunes next semester, which is great because this is an incredibly young band. It's mostly freshmen and sophomores.
Wow.
So they are doing really, really well. So look forward to Panorama tunes next semester and a more complex version of Deo next semester. Okay? You can hold me to that. Miss, you had a question?
How often do you need to tune?
We should be tuning every year, and it's been about 2 years. So Shelly, if you're watching this, get ready. I need you for 2 days. And it takes Shelly 2 full days, 8 hours each to tune all the panners in our band. Yep, it's quite an undertaking. So just like any musical instrument, don't just buy the musical instrument and think that you're done. It takes a lifetime and commitment, wallet as well to keep it up, to keep it in good shape. Yes.
I'd just like to comment that you guys are lucky to have this instructor. His enthusiasm.
I guess I'm lucky too, because I'm myself like 24/7. Thank you, me. Yes.
What was the name of the Josh Garrett piece?
Ain't Nobody. It's improper grammar. Ain't Nobody. It's originally a Shaka Khan tune. Well, we hope you enjoyed. Did you guys decide that we had to do that? Yeah, right. Oh my goodness. Oh, You all ready? Yeah. Okay, we're gonna play one more tune. How come you have a question? We're in the middle of the gig. And the choreography is always there. Okay, we got one more tune. Does anyone want to play? Okay, so when I was a kid, I really liked, well, I still like Phil Collins and Peter Gabriel. My parents, my dad really liked metal music, and my mom really liked like Don Henley and the Eagles. So they liked completely different music. But they both liked Peter Gabriel, so we listened to Peter Gabriel all the time. And if you're not familiar with Peter Gabriel, he used a lot of not only non-Western musical styles, non-Western musical instruments, but he also used actual musicians from those areas and would invite them on tours. So that's actually kind of how I developed a love for non-Western music through Peter Gabriel. But this song is from Genesis after Peter Gabriel left. It's called Land of Confusion, and we kind of do a metal version almost, so we hope you enjoy. And I'll remind the students not to overplay, because this isn't a huge space. This is not a huge auditorium, okay? It's a small auditorium, so play quietly. Okay, hope you enjoy it, and thank you again. One, two, three. Thank you, Lunch with the Books, for having us, and everyone have a lovely day. I will be here if you have any questions, and of course, you can just give one of the students as well, just get their attention if you have a question for them. And we hope to see you again, and enjoy the rest of your day and the rest of Lunch with Books program. Thank you.